Here's the truth. Most online business owners I meet are stressed out. They're overwhelmed. They're working so hard when it comes to growing their business, but oftentimes they feel like they're doing too much. And if you feel that way too, you're not alone. I've also struggled with this at various stages in my business, and I still do sometimes. The truth is, running an online business is hard. Anybody who tries to make it sound easy is usually trying to sell you something. It's not easy to grow your business. But the truth is, when I look back over 18 years of building businesses online, what I see when I actually look at my calendar and the ways that I was spending my time is I was spending a lot of time doing things that I didn't really need to do, or things that I really should have been handing off to somebody else. And as a result, so much of the stress, the overwhelm that I was experiencing just really didn't need to be there. And what I've found over time is as I've gotten more intentional about the way that I spend my time, I've been able to break through so much of the stress and the overwhelm that kept me stuck in the earlier days of growing my business. And as a result, I've actually been able to unlock my next level of business growth while working less. So I make 3, 4, 5 times the amount of money that I used to in my business, but I work less than ever. When I first started coaching online back in 2016, I was working 6 days a week and I was making 6 figures, but I was working really hard. And I mean, I don't do that anymore. I make far more, but I actually work a lot less. And the reason for it is because I've been able to apply so many of the principles and the tactics that I'm about to share with you in this episode. And in particular, one very powerful exercise that we're going to walk through inside this episode today that has allowed me to unlock stress-free business growth. Stress-free business growth. You might be hearing that and you're like, wow, that sounds really good, Jason, but is it even possible? Maybe you have a belief that the only way to grow your business is to work harder, to work more hours. I certainly felt this way at some point. So many great entrepreneurs. I was just mentoring an entrepreneur in our accelerator community last week. We're talking about scaling her business. She's at 10K a month. She wants to get to 40K a month. And one of her biggest limiting beliefs was, I don't want to work more. And I feel like I have this belief that in order to grow my business, I got to work more hours. The truth is that this isn't necessarily true. It can be true. You can create a reality in which business growth requires you to work more. But actually, some of the most successful entrepreneurs that I've ever met, people who are making a lot more money than even me, oftentimes they're working a lot less. And when I look back over my journey and I think about what's really helped me unlock true business growth, allowed me to increase my income, my impact, my ability to help more people and make more money as a result, but doing it without working harder. The simple exercise that I'm going to share with you today was really behind helping me do that. So I'm super pumped to share this with you today. It's going to make such a big impact in your business. This has been such a transformative exercise for me, and I just finished actually doing it in the past week. So if you could see my desk right now, if you're watching YouTube, you'd see there's paper all over the desk. And on these sheets of paper are the results of this exercise that I'm going to teach you in this video today. And even though that I've done this before in my business, this exercise that I completed last week was so illuminating to me because it showed me hidden areas of opportunity that I wasn't even aware of. Things that are going to help me unlock my next level. So this is something that applies for you regardless of what stage you're at in your business. It's going to help you grow your business without so much of the stress that burns so many online entrepreneurs out. So what is the key idea I want to share with you today? Well, the key idea is in order to unlock stress-free business growth, the number one key is that you need to spend your time like an investor would. I'll say that again. In order to unlock stress-free business growth, you got to spend your time like an investor. What does this mean? Well, a lot of people find it easy or easier to think about this idea in the context of spending money. The idea of investing money is something most people are familiar with. So what's the difference between spending money and investing money? Well, spending money is the way that most people think about money. which is, okay, I've got $5 or $10, whatever it is. Let me go out there, spend some money on something that's going to bring me joy in this moment. So you might go to Starbucks and you buy a latte for $7. You drink the latte, you're like, wow, that was really good. And by the way, there's no shame, there's no judgment around lattes. I really like lattes. Full transparency, I don't think I've had a latte in a while. Maybe I need to go get a latte later today. But the honest truth is, most people think about spending money in this way, which is, okay, I spend the money, I get something that makes me feel good in the moment or brings me joy or pleasure in the moment, and then it's gone. You drink the latte, it's in your stomach. That's it. It's done. The experience is done. You don't have any long-term benefit from that. Other than, you could argue it's probably a negative benefit. You got a bunch of calories and sugar and crap in your stomach. But it tasted good. You had a good experience. And it brought you some pleasure and joy in the moment. And that is the way that most people think about spending money. Now, what's the difference between that way of spending money and the way that an investor thinks about spending money? Well, the investor isn't so focused on how do I get some, immediate pleasure or joy from this money. Their focus is, how do I invest this money into something that's going to make more money, that's going to allow me to multiply my money? In other words, if I can put $1 into the stock market and maybe get $2 back in a year or 2 years or 5 years or whatever it is, I've effectively multiplied my money. And so the mindset of the investor is they're constantly looking for ways to invest their money into things that will generate more money in return. This is how great investors are able to make a lot of money, and oftentimes why they're far more successful than people who primarily think about just spending their money. Now, most people think about the idea of investing in the context of money, and that's kind of like a familiar idea, probably, if you're listening to this, but most people don't think about their time this way. Now, imagine you took that same mindset of investing your money and you transferred it over to thinking about the way that you spend your time. You got really intentional about all the ways that you were investing your time into your business, into the things that you do each hour of your day. And rather than just looking at that time as time wasted, as time spent as like the latte time, you go out and you buy a latte, it's gone. If you looked at how can I invest that money or that time to get the highest return? This is the key to unlocking stress-free business growth. Because the most successful entrepreneurs are really good at investing their time into things that generate higher returns. And this allows them to unlock sustainable business growth because they're able to use their time so much more effectively than the average entrepreneur. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, how do I actually do this? And I want to walk through 4 very simple steps that will basically help you apply this exercise that we're going to walk through here. And this is exactly what I did this past week in my business. So this is something that I'm doing all the time. It's also something that I'm recommending quite often to the entrepreneurs that I work with inside our various mentorship programs, people who are interested, who are ready to unlock their next level of business growth, but want to do it without working harder. So how do you actually do this? Well, step number 1, this is probably the most important key to success, is to do what's called a time log. Now, I've done this multiple times in my business. Every time I do it, I'm surprised. I just did this last week and it was like, wow, this was illuminating. There were so many opportunities that I wasn't even aware of that just in doing this exercise helped me gain the awareness that I needed to understand exactly what shifts I needed to make in order to unlock my next level of growth. Here's the problem. Most people have no idea how they're spending their time. Most people think they're spending time on one thing, but they're really spending most of their time on another thing. And most people, if you were to ask the average entrepreneur, how are you spending your time on a daily basis? They'd probably be able to give you like a rough estimate. But most people are pretty bad at being pretty accurate at how they're actually spending their time. So the first step to starting to treat your time differently and starting to think like an investor when it comes to your time, the first thing is you got to become aware of how you're spending all of your time. You got to have an accurate gauge of how you're investing your time today. And that is really what a time log is designed to do. So here's how this works. What you do is you create some kind of a template. Could be like a spreadsheet in Google Sheets or Excel or a document or something like that. I like to separate the day into 15-minute increments. So I'll have on that sheet 8:15, 8:30, 8:45, 9 o'clock, and I'll go through the whole day like that. And I have a little space next to each number that basically allows me to write down what I did in that specific slot of time. And I print that out and I keep that on my desk throughout the day. And throughout the day, I'm constantly going back to that sheet and I'm basically tracking how I'm spending my time accurately on a daily basis. And I do that for a week. Could be a work week or it could be a full week. I think a week is a good amount of time. And you want to do this on an average week. If you're doing something different, this week, maybe you're doing like a launch or something that is different from what you normally do, you want to wait until you have like an average week that is a good reflection of what you're actually doing on a weekly basis in your business. Hey friend, hope you're enjoying this episode of the podcast. And before we get back to it, if you're an established online business owner who's serious about unlocking your next level of income and impact and growth in your business, I want you to watch my free $1 Million online business training, where I walk through a 4-step roadmap I've personally used to sell well over $1 million of coaching, consulting, and courses online. It's going to make the journey of growing your business so much easier. I want to give this to you for free. All you got to do to access it is go to jasonmoss.com/growth. That's jasonmoss.com/GROWTH to get free access to this training right now. Now back to the episode. So after you do this is step number 1. I find this is like 80% of this whole process. Because once you just see how you're spending your time, you'll naturally start to make shifts and changes. For example, I did this last week. One of the things I realized was I was spending 30 minutes a day snoozing in bed in the morning. My alarm clock would go off at 6:45 and I wouldn't wake up until 7:15. And so I saw this, and after the first day, I was like, wow, 30 minutes times 5 days in an average week, a work week, that's like 2.5 hours I'm spending snoozing. Like I could read a book in that amount of time. I could invest, just taking that time and reinvesting it into things that are way more important. And that's not really giving me any value, just laying in bed. It's not like I'm sleeping, so I'm resting. It's not like I'm awake, so I'm doing something. I'm just in this weird limbo land. But just seeing that very clearly and seeing like, wow, 30 minutes times 5, that's a lot of time. Just seeing that alone empowered me. It gave me perspective that allowed me to realize how much time I was actually wasting. So just being able to see this gives you awareness. And this is half the battle, knowing where you're spending your time. And once you see this on a sheet of paper, you can't unsee it. It's like, wow, I'm spending a lot of time doing stuff I probably shouldn't be doing. Super powerful exercise. So once you have this time log, then you go through step number 2 through 4. And these are super powerful steps. Now, when it comes to investing your time more intentionally on higher leverage things, these next few steps are really designed to help you do this. The first thing is I want you to go through your time log and I want you to look at all the things that you're doing that really don't need to be done at all. So step number 2 is what I call eliminate. There are so many things when I look back over the course of my business, so many things that I thought I needed to do, they really didn't need to be done. Things that I thought were moving the needle, but when I really look back and I ask myself the honest question, could I just cut this completely? Would it really make any difference in my business? Or maybe it would make a little bit of a difference, but just for the sake of simplicity, not doing this thing at all would be way more useful. It would cut so much of the amount of time that I was spending on something that actually isn't really driving significant results in my business. I'm a big fan of the 80-20 principle. You've probably heard this talked about quite a bit, which is you focus on the things in your business that generate 80% of the results. And usually there's only 20% of the things that you're doing in your business that are actually generating 80% of those results. And then there's a bunch of other things you're doing that maybe at best are moderately useful, maybe, but you're wasting a bunch of time doing them, and that's taking you away from things you could be doing that are higher leverage activities. So what are the things that really move the needle? Well, for most entrepreneurs, it's marketing and sales. It's going out there and creating content and having sales conversations. Those are the two things, and delivering for your clients. Like, those are the 2-3 things that most often need to be the things that you focus on. But for example, like, there were things that we were doing, I'm trying to think of a specific example. Like, when we used to publish a YouTube video, we created a separate blog post on our website. And that blog post had a thumbnail, and it had a little description, and then it had the YouTube video embedded on it. And we did this for I was like close to like a year. But then I one day I stopped and I asked myself, like, is this actually even adding any value to our business? Are people even going to these blog posts? And like, a couple people were. But I realized after a period of time, we could just link up to our YouTube channel on our website and cut that whole part out of the upload process. And we'd still have 99% of the results. Now we don't have to waste all this time doing something that's not really effective. So step number 2 here is going through your time log and asking yourself, what am I doing that I can eliminate? What most people do, one of the biggest mistakes that most people make when it comes to delegating or outsourcing, is they delegate or outsource stuff that really should just be eliminated. It shouldn't be there in the first place. So they end up having somebody else do all the things that really shouldn't be done. And it just creates a lot of complexity and a lot of layers of, overwhelm in the business. When, if you actually look at what really moves the needle in an online business, it's quite simple. Marketing, creating content, having conversations, selling, obviously delivering for your clients, whatever you need to do to be able to serve them, make sure they have a great experience. These are simple things. But most people, when I look at how they're spending their time in their business, they're spending a lot of time doing stuff that they really don't need to do. So step number 2 is to eliminate. Looking at your time log, going through all the activities and asking yourself, what just doesn't need to be there? What can I cut completely? This is also going to reduce a lot of stress and a lot of overwhelm. It's something you can do today. It's so powerful just as a way of de-stressing. Because what I find in a business is, you start adding more and more and more over time. It's like when you start, things are kind of simple. And then somebody is like, oh, you should also do this. And this thing really worked well for me. And this thing really worked well. And so you just kind of like amass more and more. It's like you're like a snowball rolling down a hill. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you look back, it's like after a couple of years of running your business, and you're like, my God, I'm doing so many things. I don't even know whether or not half of them are really working. So it's so important to have these moments when you step back and you look at your business and what you're doing and asking yourself, like, what can I cut away? Such a powerful practice. Elimination, simplifying, getting back to the basics again and again and again. So that's step number 2, eliminate. Now from there, step number 3, once you've cut away all the things that really don't need to be done at all, or really aren't moving the needle, that probably shouldn't be done, then you can ask yourself, which things on this list can I automate? Now, I'm super pumped about this because I think there's so much opportunity, particularly in this area, especially with AI and what's going on with AI. Like, for example, I used to have someone on my team who, whenever we would create a new YouTube video, she would write a description for the YouTube video. And, she would create like a whole outline of, what the video was. And it was really well-written description. She did a great job. But when I started uploading podcasts to our podcast host, Buzzsprout, I realized that they had a feature they call it Co-Host AI. This is not a plug for Buzzsprout, by the way. I think they're good. But they have a feature, it's called Co-Host AI, where whenever you upload an episode, it automatically creates a description based on the episode content, the transcript of the content. So I realized we could just take that and we could plug that into YouTube, and now we don't need somebody else to write a description for us. There's so much potential with tools like ChatGPT for things like descriptions, for, kind of like boilerplate type text, for, these kind of lower level tasks and lower level writing activities and things that you might have had somebody do in the past, but really automation, AI can take care of today. And I think more and more, we're going to see more of this in a business. So looking at the things that you're doing that do need to be done and asking yourself, is there a way that I can automate this? Or is there a way that I can make this, simple enough where it can be automated? And maybe your first reaction is like, well, no. But you look at this and you kind of ask yourself through the lens of like the 80-20 principle. It's like, initially, my reaction oftentimes with this stuff is like, well, it needs to be the best it can be. So we need to have somebody write it. That's always my first reaction, because like perfectionism is like my first mindset. I'm like, I want to make it the best it could possibly be. But if I ask myself the question, what's good enough? Then so many doors open up. And I realize oftentimes like, hey, maybe AI is not going to be as good as someone on our team, but if it means we don't have to do work at all and we can have these auto-generated things that are pretty good and they're going to give us 80% of what we might have gotten if we had somebody write, awesome. Let's do it. I'm down. I don't want to spend time writing descriptions. I don't want to pay somebody else to do it too. So eliminate is the first step, but automate is the second step. And a lot of people skip over this and they go straight to the fourth step, which we're going to talk about here, which is delegate, the last piece of this puzzle. But if you go through these pieces first, eliminate, automate, and delegate, then you get to the end of the line and you're only handing things off to people that make sense to actually hand off to them. And the other benefit about this is that you can typically hand things off to people who are not necessarily as skilled, people who generally like you can pay less to actually do the things that need to be done because you're going through those previous steps. So for example, if I don't need somebody to write descriptions, I can hire maybe a VA in the Philippines who I could pay, $5 to $10 an hour. This is like a great wage for somebody in the Philippines. Instead of if I was looking for someone who could write descriptions, I probably need to hire like a US native VA who maybe I'd pay like $25 an hour. So you can start thinking about, okay, what's the lowest level of activities that I can outsource? And that allows me oftentimes to have someone on my team who I can pay less to do these things, and they can still do a great job, and everything that needs to be done can be done. So that brings us to step number 4 here, which is delegate. And the way that I think about delegating is anything that you do on your list that you can pay somebody else less than an hour of your time is worth to do, you should delegate. So here's how you think about this. The first thing is you look at how much you're paying yourself on a yearly basis, let's say. So let's say you're making $100,000 a year in your business. This is like your take-home income. And you want to include, if you paying yourself a salary, as well as any dividends, as well as all the bonuses, whatever it is that you're taking out of the business, that maybe you're spending money in the business that's, for more personal things, but also have a business purpose. Just tally all that up and basically come up with a number that you're paying yourself on a yearly basis. And then you take that number and you divide it by 2,000. And that's the average number of hours that most people work in a year. And that is going to give you what an hour of your time is worth. So let's say your time is worth $100 an hour. And then you look at your business and you look at that time log and you ask yourself, okay, for all those things on that list, if I were to pay somebody else to actually do that thing, how much would I have to pay them? And so you'll find there's things on your list you're doing that are like $1,000 an hour activities, things like being on video, let's say, or selling, sales calls as another example, or, writing copy. These are like really high value, high leverage things. And then there's other things you're doing like uploading YouTube videos or writing descriptions or creating thumbnails or things like that you could probably pay someone $20 an hour to do. So what you want to do is you want to basically go down your time log list and write down, okay, here's what I'm spending, if I were to outsource this to somebody else, here's what I would have to pay basically to hire that person. And once you go through that list, then you can step back and you can say, okay, for all these things that I'm doing that I can pay somebody else significantly less than an hour of my time is worth, I need to go out there and I need to delegate right away. Now, a lot of people have resistance around this because they're like, okay, well, maybe I'm not making enough money in my business to be able to support hiring somebody else. And my thing is, well, the way that you get to making more money is by doing this. Because if you can free up more of your time, then you can reinvest that time back into higher leverage things. And this is how smart entrepreneurs think. So if you've got 3 months of enough to actually hire somebody, think about in that 3 months what you would be able to accomplish if you weren't spending 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week doing admin. Think about how much more content you could create. Think about how many more sales calls you could have. Think about, you could run another masterclass or another training, per month, and probably make back, 5 times the amount that you're actually going to pay the virtual assistant or whoever it is that you hire to take these things off your plate. So this is how smart entrepreneurs think. It's not that we're waiting to make more money in order to hire people. It's like the people who are like, well, I can't hire a business coach because I'm not making enough money. I'm like, well, isn't that the reason you need to hire a business coach? Of course. Of course you're not making enough money. That's why you need a business coach. So we don't wait for the business to make more money before we hire so that we can free up our time to invest back into the business. We invest back into the business at a higher level so we can make more money. That's how it works. You can't put the cart before the horse. So this is what this looks like. Delegating and looking at where you're spending your time and outsourcing those lower level tasks that you can hire somebody at a rate that is less than an hour of your time is worth. Now, where do you find these people? You find them anywhere, but Upwork has been one of my most effective platforms for finding talent. I love Upwork. I've hired so many freelancers. You can hire great people who will work for you, 5 hours, 10 hours a week. You don't need to have like a full-time thing that you can offer somebody. And oftentimes people's first hires will be a virtual assistant. So this is kind of like your catch-all admin type person who can do a lot of like the administrative type tasks in your business, things like scheduling content or uploading videos or, simple replying to basic email, stuff. These are often things that take up so much time in an average online entrepreneur's day to day. And once you free up these things, my God, you're off to the races. You can take that time that you freed up and then reinvest it back into things that are going to generate more return. So going back to our core idea from this video, thinking of spending your time like an investor and looking at an hour of your time, what it's worth, and asking yourself, how can I spend that hour of time to generate the highest return? 4 steps again to help you do this. Number 1, do a time lock. Get clear on where you're spending your time today. Number 2, eliminate all the things that really aren't moving the needle or that are only contributing a small amount to your business, but are contributing much less than other things that you could be investing your time back into if you weren't wasting time doing things that really only contribute a little bit into your business. Number 3, from there, automating the things that you can automate, even if automation would mean that they're being done at 80%, of what they could be done at 100%. Automating is going to free up more of your time. And then finally, delegating the things that you can't automate. These 4 steps are going to allow you and help you to free up more of your time so you can invest that time back into things that are going to make you more money. And this is how you grow a business without stressing out. This is how you make more money with more freedom. This is how you are able to make a bigger impact without feeling like you're burned out. It's more than possible. It just takes this approach and continuing to do this on a regular basis as you grow and scale your business. Because the truth is, this exercise relevant to you, whether you're just getting started, whether you're making 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, multiple 7 figures, this simple process is something that you can continue to come back to again and again and again as you grow your business. It's going to make the journey so much easier. So I hope you found this helpful today. Thank you so much for listening. We got so much more good stuff to come on this podcast. So I will see you in the next episode.